love to share my screen.
Yes, I will change that setting right now.
So,
Okay, so you
yeah,
will be able
let's
to
do
share.
this.
And yes, I think this is a great way to start. I want to hear the story of how Cheryl and Liz met.
You know, when Liz, so when she puts her mind to something, Liz will accomplish it. So we were at, oh geez, Liz, we were at
It was LA. It was LA boot camp.
or Sandy. Oh, it was LA. Yeah, one of the boot camp. We were at a boot camp. It might have been San Diego, actually.
Yeah, it could have been. It was in California.
Anyway, it was in California. We know that. Sorry, I'm rearranging my screens here real quick, folks. If you see me looking the other way. So anyway, we were at the hotel, and I was sitting at the bar, my husband and I. The kids had been there, a couple other people were around, and I'll kind of get into a little more about who I am and whatnot. But we were sitting there, part of the group left, and Liz was behind us, and I had no idea she was sitting behind us. And she comes up and she taps me on the shoulder and she says, "You're somebody, aren't you?" And I'm like, are you talking to me? You're talking to me? It was precious and priceless. And we've been friends ever since. Coach and student, coach and client and friends. It's been awesome. But I'm telling you, Liz, when she puts her mind to it, it's fabulous. And let me also say, Wendy, great to see you. Melissa, Yulia, you guys, oh my goodness, I love seeing all these fabulous faces. And for those that don't know me, I'll get into my background here in just a minute. So first of all, how's everybody feeling today? Doing good? Thumbs up? Yeah? All right. So let's have a little fun and learn how to improve our communication skills. How does that sound? Sound good, everyone? All right. Well, Liz and Marie, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity tonight. I really appreciate spending time with you guys, and I love seeing the faces I haven't seen for a while and meeting new ones. My name is Cheryl O'Hearn, and when I'm not coaching real estate, so by the way, I'm not coaching for fortune builders anymore. I do coach on my own. When I'm not coaching real estate clients, I am also a mindset and performance coach. And I've been a coach and an entrepreneur for 10 years. And I have to say, the one thing I know to be 100% certain is the success of your business begins with your mindset. And so in my business today, I work with entrepreneurs who want more, and we remove obstacles and bring purpose and fulfillment to their lives. So we have a lot of fun, and that kind of in that capacity was where Liz and I got to spend some fun time together a little while ago. On the real estate side, for those of you that don't know me, I am part of a family business, my husband and I and our two sons, and we're full-time real estate investors. We do rehabbing, wholesaling, passive income. We've also got a kitchen design business. And prior to becoming an entrepreneur, I was in IT for 30 years. And let me say, was it Mia who was given the market update? Yeah, our market is very similar. So, and the hedge funds, apparently the rumor is that the hedge funds have come back to Denver to buy up what inventory is available. So we're having all kinds of fun. Anyway, so most recently to my resume, I added NLP Master Coach. Kind of during COVID, I was at a place, and maybe many of you were in a feeling similar, kind of what's going on, where's the market going to go, what do I want to do? For me as a coach, I'd been coaching for a lot of years already, and I wanted to take my coaching to the next level. And so a friend of mine mentioned NLP training, and I tell you what, it was life-changing for me. Helping folks remove obstacles and learning about the wonderful world of communications from an NLP perspective really has been a game changer for myself, for our business. I came back from training and started educating my family, my friends, and now all of my family has gone through NLP training as well. So our productivity is up. We speak the same language, and things are happening. We just came off our best quarter ever as a business. It's just when things start clicking and your team is working, it's fabulous. So, all right, everybody's a real estate investor. How many of you are enjoying generating leads in this market, actually generating some leads, right? Yes, a few here and there. And how many of you would like to generate more leads or close more deals, right? Well, I think we all know that the metrics we focus on, leads, offers, and deals, really, it takes about 100 leads, 25, we're going to make 25 offers, and we're going to get, hopefully one deal out of that. Well, so then, we need to ask ourselves, what if we generate 200 leads and we make 50 offers? Does that mean I'm only going to go to 2 deals? Like, what does that look like, right? Well, in our business and what NLP has taught us, that communications really equals success. And so we've also realized that success, or excuse me, communications is really, it's more about it's not what we are communicating, but it's how we're communicating. So as you might imagine, in a family business, our dynamics, we've got some strong personalities, any of you who know us, and it's hard. I mean, it's like one person needs to come to the top to sort of be the leader. How do we do that with all those personalities? So needless to say, productivity was not our friend. And really what we have to remember and what we've learned is that the meaning of communication really is the feedback that we receive. So from an NLP perspective, what is communication? And NLP, so let's talk about what NLP is. It's neuro-linguistic programming. And by the way, Tony Robbins is, of course, a master at NLP. He is a practitioner level, and my certification is actually a higher level certification than his. Neuro, the mind. So we have a conscious and an unconscious component to our mind. And when we start getting in tune with the unconscious component, really listening to our gut about what we should be doing, what the right answer is, we're going to see some different results. And we can talk about unconscious versus conscious mind. I don't want to get into too much detail. However, I will take questions at the end. So you guys feel free to ask questions at the end. Now, linguistics. So the language, our word choice. What are, if we're asking questions with appropriate words, what does that look like? And how does that affect the response or the feedback we get with those communications? And underneath all of it is our programming. And our programming, it begins from birth, really, made up of our values, our beliefs, our attitudes that we take on from our families, from our friends, from school, from our jobs, wherever, maybe from church, whatever organizations we're a part of, and those kinds of things. We'll take a lot of those, a lot of that in, and it becomes our programming. So what that means is that that's our frame of reference for how we view the world, if you will. All right, how we view communications. Now, on top of that, we use our senses to process information, and we formulate our opinions and determine our actions based on a combination of what's going on from an NLP perspective, mostly neuro and programming, right? And then the senses on top of it. So the primary senses that we use, visual, what we're seeing, auditory, what we're hearing, kinesthetic, how we feel, olfactory, what we're smelling, right? That can affect our attitude, and then what we're tasting. So all of that just kind of plays into our being and how we feel for the day. I mean, think about it this way. We hear a fire alarm go off, and unconsciously we know what to do. We know to get up and get to the nearest exit, get out the building. We, on a daily basis, we're not asking our heart to pump or reminding our body to breathe. Those are unconscious actions, right? That's all happening and controlled by our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind keeps track of everything from a chronological perspective from birth. kind of like a filing cabinet, makes no judgment, just keeps track. It's our conscious mind that lends, well, wait a minute, kind of the voice to what goes on from an unconscious level. None of these actions, getting out of the building with the fire alarm, or, reminding our heart to pump or our body to breathe, none of that, again, it happens. We don't have to think about it. We have to tell ourselves to do that. So, and our senses play into what's going on. It's the old, hey, I don't want to touch that burner. You touch it once, you get burned, and I'm not going to touch it again, right? So we all also have certain senses that we favor. And then what happens when one of the senses, is impaired? Maybe you've been swimming or in the water and, your ear is blocked, right? The other senses take over. You got a sinus infection or allergies or whatever, you're not able to smell so easily, right? The other factors take over. And by the way, you guys, I have lost the chat box. So if anybody's putting anything in the chat box, I'm not seeing it, just FYI. I don't know what I did with it. All right. So
if I see anything, I'll unmute and let you know, Cheryl.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. Appreciate that. So all of this is happening at the unconscious level. Well, then what does that really mean from a communications perspective, right? Because there's a lot going on from an unconscious perspective. Well, check this out. Our communications really are only 7% the words that we say. The tonality is 38%, and the physiology makes up the rest, 55%. So many of us as real estate investors, we focus on, I want to have the right words. I want to create the right deal. I want to present my offer appropriately. Maybe I don't have, I don't want to venture out yet because I don't have all the right words. Well, guess what? It's not the words that matter. They really don't. All right. Now, knowing this, we've all heard about, or been taught to build rapport. And building rapport is about the conversation we're going to have. Well, how does that work? Well, so if you're trying to build rapport on the phone, the things that you can take advantage of really are the speed that you're talking, the quality, the loudness, right? Tone is huge for successful communications. How many times, first of all, how many people have children and they've come to you with an attitude, right? Like just boom, they're hitting you with it. So, or somebody that you've encountered, somebody right? All of a sudden they're just whipping this attitude on you, and it comes across in their tone. Now, how do you feel when you're the receiver of that, right? We're not open to successful communications at that point. We've probably already turned them off. Now, if you're speaking maybe with someone from New York or East Coast, right? They're really, really fast talkers. There you go, right? Where he's like, yep, that's me. So fast talkers. If that's the person on the phone, if that's a seller on the other end of the phone and you're trying to, make an offer, build rapport, those kinds of things, what should you do? Speak more quickly, match that tempo, right? The speed. If you're speaking with somebody from the South who's got y'alls, right? They're adding y'alls in there, and that's how they talk. You might want to throw a few y'alls in there. Build a little of that rapport verbally that way. Oftentimes, this has happened a lot in our business. The seller is an elderly person looking to make a shift to maybe assisted living or some other living arrangements. Now, what approach do you think you should have with that kind of a seller? We're going to come across a little softer. We're going to speak more slowly. We're going to choose our words more carefully. And that's how we build that rapport. We're probably going to spend a little time trying to educate that person on what it's like to do business with us, right? This is something fun. Start trying this at home. Try it when you're on the phone waiting for, I don't know, these days you got to call. Like for me, every time I need somebody at the bank, I got to call instead of making a flipping appointment to go see them, right? So now I'm on the phone. I've only got my voice to build that rapport to get done what I need to get done. If I'm in person with someone, then again, we've had the conversation and we've talked about trying to figure out the things we have in common, family we want to understand, or their occupation, right? So what are some other things we can do? Well, matching and mirroring their motions. I'm a person, as you can see, I talk with my hands. I like to have my hands going. Some of us are kind of demonstrative that way, right? Posture. Are you a person that leans in, or you're going to be, sitting back a little bit? The gesturing, facial expressions, the contagious yawn that happens in a group, right? And this happens, a lot of this will happen maybe across the table, right? During a meeting, you're going to encounter the one person sits there and starts yawning, and pretty soon it goes around the room. Everybody starts yawning. Facial expression, somebody's scratching their nose, and all of a sudden, how many people start scratching their nose in the group, right? If you're standing, start swaying. And one by one, the people in the group will start to sway. And all of a sudden, it's not a big sway, right? But some of us who are moms will even with grown kids, I still find myself swaying sometimes when I'm standing in a group. Well, pretty soon when the other people are swaying, you're in rapport, right? All right. So my trainers, my NLP trainers, they have a pretty cool thing they do. They, when they're in a meeting and it's 2-on-2, they each start by taking the person across from them and start building rapport with gesturing, matching, and mirroring. And then they do a little thing they tap their pencil to the other person when they know they've gotten in rapport, and then they switch. And so at some point, they're in rapport with both of the people on the other side of the table. Well, imagine if you're trying to do a deal and make a presentation, close a deal, whatever that is, and all of a sudden you've achieved that rapport. That's when it's time to go in and ask for the deal. All right. Now, what is rapport? Well, it's really when we have an unconscious responsiveness with the other person or the group of people, like the swaying. That's when we start to know we're in rapport. Some things that might be indicators of this rapport, really just an internal feeling, and you may feel it. I mean, you're going to feel it before you might recognize it in the other person. It could be a color change in their face, right? It could just be a softening of their look, of their smile, right? If you're watching for that a little bit, and all of a sudden you can just, you're watching for facial expressions, you'll see it a little bit. How many of you have maybe been walking with a seller around a property, and the seller's just going along telling about their property and giving you all the details, and then all of a sudden the seller says, now they kind of realize they've been talking, and they probably all are realizing at the same time they're in rapport. Now tell me how this works. How do I work with you? Guess what? You've got them. You've got rapport. Do the deal. Okay. So these are all indicators of a good, successful conversation. What does it look like, or what is the experience like maybe if the conversation isn't so successful? Well, how many times have you ever been talking to somebody and heard them say, "You're not listening to me. I just don't feel like you get me. Why can't you see what I'm talking about? Or what you're saying just doesn't make any sense." Well, that means we've got a different type of communication problem, right? Something's a mismatch. So what this means is that we all have preferred what's called a representational system. And this system is the system that we favor for receiving information and then processing it. So let's talk about what that is. And I'm going to talk about that, what that looks like, because the first one up is visual. I'm a very visual person. I got to see the pictures. I've got to see, I've got to see the slide. I've got to see what's happening. Then I can connect the dots. Then I can do the deal. A visual person is probably standing or sitting upright. Their eyes are up. Maybe they sit forward in their chair. Some things to kind of look for there. They might breathe from the top of their lungs. It takes a little while to learn to kind of recognize different breathing patterns, right? Memorize by seeing pictures. Like I can tell you in a stack of papers how far down where that file folder is or that stack of papers, put it in the filing cabinet out of sight, I can't find it. Drives me crazy, right? Any visuals in the crowd relate to any of this? So I'm going to be interested in how the deal looks. I want somebody to show me the deal, and then I'm going to be able to make a decision. So if I'm presenting to someone who's visual, I'm going to listen for these words. These words: see, look, appear. You'll hear me say, let me see how it is, or look how, look at what's going on. Let me see what my calendar looks like to see if we've got time, right? Or if I've got an opening then. Appear or show, view, and oftentimes I'm going to ask, what's the picture? What does it look like? You're presenting an offer to a visual person. You're going to want to have something in writing to show the visual person. They're going to want, a visual person needs more than just the verbal details. Because verbally, if I'm just seeing the verbal, I'm going to tune out or I'm going to forget. I need to see it, and that's how I can memorize it. Okay. Now, if someone is there, so there's 4 representational types. Visual's the first one. If someone is auditory, this person, they will move their eyes sideways a lot and breathe from their chest. An auditory person likes to talk to themselves. So that's a pretty much a dead giveaway there, right? They like music, talking on the phone, and from a sort of a love language response perspective, somebody who's auditory likes to be told how they're doing. My office manager is auditory, and I have to remind myself to tell her how she's doing. She responds very well to that, right? So somebody who's auditory wants to hear it. If your seller is auditory, they're going to want to know how the deal sounds. They're going to use words like hear or listen. Again, sounds. You might hear them say tune in, tune out, be all ears. A question, if you think you're talking to a seller who might be auditory, you're going to want to ask them, does this resonate? How does this sound? All right. And you'll know pretty quickly what they're, if they're getting it or not. They'll nod and yes. Anybody relate to this from an auditory perspective? Yeah, a couple of you. Nice, nice. All right, well, we have a couple more. Kinesthetics. So kinesthetics, people who are kinesthetic are very, well, first of all, they breathe from the bottom of their lungs, and they will talk and speak very slowly. They're trying to get a feeling, like, how do things feel? What is that, what's that the feeling of the entire presentation or whatever's going on. They are going to listen to your pitch, and they are going to be processing, does this feel right? They can often be accused of overthinking because they're working on it and looking for as many options as possible until it feels right. And by the way, visuals can be a little bit that way as well. We want it to look just right. Okay. Then it feels good. Then they're, then they can process and they're okay. So kinesthetics, you might be, if you're dealing with a seller who's highly kinesthetic, they're going to come across as an overthinker and want to talk to many other people before they can make a decision about whether to sell to you or not. They respond to physical rewards, physical touching, pat on the back, those kinds of things that makes them feel, really good about what's going on. They'll stand close to people, and they memorize by doing. They have to be in the moment, and actually, so walking the property with a seller like this and getting kind of their buy-in about, well, I think the kitchen might need some updating. Do you feel that way as well? And that's how you start to get that rapport and get them processing what you're saying. They're going to use these kinds of words: feel, touch, grasp, slip through the cracks. You've heard people say that, right? Catch on, get a hold of, make contact. And then about surfaces or other feelings: hard, concrete, get a handle. Let's see. And then the fourth one is auditory digital. Now, auditory digitals, they also spend quite a bit of time talking to themselves, and they will exhibit characteristics from a lot of the other, or from all the other rep systems as well. They want to know if the deal makes sense. So they like facts and figures. They want to know the details. They want to know what the experience of selling to you will be like. If you're dealing with someone who's an AD, and they've been using some of these words, you're going to want to say something to them like, now, we're going to agree on a price, and then I'm going to, put this in a contract, you'll sign, I'm going to take the money, the earnest money, I'll deposit that at the title company or with the attorney, and continue to walk them through the process so they know exactly what those steps are. Anyone who's auditory digital will definitely want to know what's going on, like what the agenda of a session is. So if you're presenting to auditory, or to catch, I guess I should say, to communicate with auditory digitals, you want to make sure you've got an agenda to your presentation. So how many ways can a conversation sort of start to go sideways, right? And you thought all you had to know was how to talk about real estate. So from an NLP perspective, these concepts are really very foundational. We then, in a more advanced fashion, can take these concepts and start to put them together from a strategy perspective. So we know exactly how to present an offer. And if you're an agent, maybe working with a buyer, right? What's important to that buyer about the house they're going to be purchasing. So there's a lot more we can do with it. For now, start to listen to these words. We call them predicates for the people that you interact with, and see, because I'm visual, and see how it goes. So, all right. Another concept really has to do with getting on the same page. And I apologize. I know this is a very busy slide. There's a lot here. So we've been practicing and talking about tone, volume, and pitch. Matching, mirroring, all the rest of it. Does that mean that our conversation will automatically be successful? No, unfortunately, there's still other ways that the communication can potentially go sideways. So what happens if you're a person who's big picture pie in the sky, and you're talking to somebody who needs the details in order to formulate and understand what you're saying? Well, we got a lot of ground to cover in between, right? So getting on the same page, we call this chunking, and hierarchy of ideas, and it's chunking. And so the example, and I'll start here, a great example of chunking is, so one of the spouses comes home and says, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" And one spouse starts in with, "Well, I had this 8 o'clock meeting and it went pretty good. And then I had a 9 o'clock meeting, not so productive. And then I had some time at my desk. And then I went out to lunch and we had this great conversation. I had all this good food. And then I had this, and then I had this. And then I went back for the afternoon and I had 3 more meetings, and, and just really gives you every detail of the day." That's a low chunker. All right. Somebody who's really chunked down into the details. The high chunker would say, when asked, "Honey, how was your day?" "My day was great." Now, if you're a high chunker and you just asked that question of a detailed person, you've tuned out within my 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. All you were listening for is, was that day good or not? And can I help you fix it, right? If you're the detailed person and your chunker only gives you, "Well, my day was good." Well, come on, high chunkers, help them out a little bit. Give them 2 to 3 bullets about what happened. You don't have to give them every detail of the day, but bring that chunking a little more in line. So we use the chunking up to get to a frame of agreement. And if somebody's low chunked and we're trying to get them up a little bit, right? We might say things to them like, well, what is this an example of? For what purpose? And what is the intention of the idea you've just shared, or whatever the conversation is, right? If somebody, we want to get them chunked down, right? Then we're going to say, well, what are examples of this, or what specifically? And so, and meta model questions, we'll talk about that in a minute. There's also lateral chunking, just trying to find some commonality to see if we're even on the same page. So sports is a good example of this. Two people might agree that sports, they both enjoy sports. However, as we start to chunk down, one person likes football, one likes baseball. That's fine. Or they both like football. And then we start to chunk down a little bit. Well, one likes professional teams, one likes college teams or whatnot, right? So then the chunking kind of kicks in. So the chart on the right with an example. So this is a real high chunk. If we talk about existence and movement, and then we get to transportation. All right. So buses, boats, cars, planes, and trains, those are examples of transportation, which is an example of movement into existence. I mean, at a high, as we chunk clear up, right? We start to chunk down. And like I mentioned with the sports teams, well, let's talk about classes and categories, right? BMW versus a Pontiac, or from a parts perspective. So there's ways, I mean, people live kind of in their areas. For you to improve the communications, it's knowing how to manipulate that chunking piece. So this actually is probably one of the biggest, had one of the biggest impacts on our business. I have to laugh telling the story. So again, we're a family-owned business. And when we were starting out, we were trying to be, good professionals and have our weekly meetings and be productive and go through the agenda, and everybody was going to give their, give their report and whatnot. Well, it became, if something wasn't going right, it would start to become, well, we would cast blame, or it's somebody's fault, or whatever that looked like. And we'd end up in a knockdown, drag out argument. So my first step was I moved, some of you might have heard me say this before, I moved all of our meetings to Starbucks. I figured, well, at least we wouldn't yell at each other in public. It was a way at least to get something a little better, right? Well, and that helped. That got us at least to get to a better routine. It wasn't until my oldest son, Brooks, went to NLP training, and he actually realized what our communications problem was. I got this call from him being at training. He's like, Mom, I get it. He says, the problem is you and I chunk at different levels. He said, I'm a real high chunker and you're a low chunker. And so we now literally will be in conversations about, all right, you got to chunk higher for me. You got to come down. And the productivity is fabulous. It forces the other person to think through it a little bit, right? Anybody experienced anything like that? Yeah, right?
Yeah, we got a few comments about this. Sounds like me and my husband, and I can definitely relate to this. So
yeah, good. And there's so much of it because so many of us are business partners. I mean, first we have our personal relationships, right? But so many of us are then business partners with our spouse. Geez, we gotta get on the same level. I mean, we've just got to get on the same level, right? So
that's not just with our spouse. Liz loves to ask me a million questions. I see her over there. She's crying right now. She's laughing so hard
because I'm so chunker and I want all the details, and you're like, I don't know.
She's literally like, Marie, what happened with this? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't ask that question, Liz. I don't know. She's like, Marie, how was yesterday? And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Yesterday was fine. What are you talking about, Liz? Then she asked me like 17 follow-up questions. I'm like, holy crap. It's like an interrogation.
Okay. So Liz, what are you going to do to chunk? How are you going to try to chunk higher? Or Marie, maybe I should say, Marie, how are you going to cue her to chunk higher? For what purpose, Liz?
Tell me. She does tell me sometimes, Cheryl. Last week we were traveling. She said, "Don't talk to me in the morning." I said one thing. She said, "Liz," I said, "Don't talk to me."
It's like, just don't talk to me before 10 a.m. I'm not the same person. I'm very nice at these meetings. I'm a night owl person.
But,
just don't talk to me before
that's
10 a.m.
it. That's it. There's all this stuff that goes into communications, and all you want to do is buy the dang house from the seller, right? Just saying. Well, so what about trying to get to a frame of agreement? All right. So a frame of agreement to try to negotiate a deal. We want to chunk as high as possible. Where's the spot where we're feeling the same? Like here, are we at transportation sort of level, or is it buses, boats, cars, planes, trains? Like what level, so we can kind of maneuver up and down. So frame of agreement, we want to get higher chunked. We never ask why. Take the word why out of your vocabulary right now. What does asking someone why, what does that cause, right? What kind of response? Well, I mean, see, Marie's making the face, exactly it. People don't want, you're going to get reasons why things didn't work instead of what the results were. The person immediately goes into defense mode. So we never respond, or we never ask why. When there's a proposal, right? A proposal, an idea, a suggestion, we don't respond to it with a counter proposal. Instead, try restating, validating, clarifying, or probing for more information to better understand. I mean, many of you, fortune builders, you probably heard Andy Tanner, his favorite line is, "Tell me more," right? That's a great one. You're not sure what the person's talking about? Tell me more. We avoid attacks or defend exchanges. So we treat the proposal as if it's one option, right? And then we probe for what's their motivation behind it, or what's the intended purpose or the expected outcome. What does that look like? And then if you're attacked, treat the proposal the same way. If attacked, probe for the outcome behind the attack. So it's about asking more questions. Attempting to not, or I should say not attempting, but separating yourself from taking something like that personally and really getting it to the level of we're just trying to get on the same page, will make the conversation go a whole lot more smoothly. Of course, we don't want to say things like, "I can't believe you'd make such a ridiculous offer." Or if someone does make that comment to you, well, we want to separate the intent of the comment from the behavior. So this is a way to give the other person basically the benefit of the doubt, if you will. All right. Separate the intent from the behavior. Works very well with kids and spouses as well, by the way, and business partners. And use I language. So I'm having trouble understanding this, instead of you're not making yourself clear, the blame game. So we choose our words a little more carefully, right? Avoid the blame game, I should say. So if that isn't enough for ninja tips, well, now we can really change the neurology. This actually is one of my favorites. It works so well with my kids. I'm so thankful, especially since the kids are in the business with us. So instead of asking the kids something like, "How come you didn't get that done?" or "When will you get that done?" or asking them some sort of question that only offers a yes or no response, and probably I'm already going to know the answer. Instead, I'm going to ask, "What will it take for you to complete this?" Or "What is your expected timeline for completion?" Right? Give them the benefit of the doubt. How many more hours do you need to complete it? Right? Maybe when you're speaking with a seller who is a bit reluctant, we might want to ask that seller, "Well, what if the property doesn't sell? Or what if we're not able to strike a deal, what will happen? Where will you go? Right? What does that look like for you, Mr. or Ms. Seller? We want to expand their thinking so that they realize there's a choice. What if yes or no versus, the path we're headed down. So when you're, and for yourself, when you're trying to make a choice, like oftentimes people are, should I take this job or change to the other one? Should I quit my job and become a full-time real estate investor? Right? Well, what if I do? What will happen if I do? What will happen if I don't? What if? And expand that thinking. All right. And again, never ask why. We want to ask instead for what purpose. And, we've been doing this. We've been doing this for almost a year now at our house. And it's almost hilarious because as soon as you ask that question, the receiver of it knows they've got to give you a response. Like they know you're asking more than just, for the basics. We want to know what's happening, what is going on. For what purpose did you do that? For what purpose did you ask that question? Try that on for yourself. If somebody's asking you that, or a situation where you might have needed to ask that question, how that might have changed the neurology. So with all of these communication skills, how about with that same 100 leads and 25 offers, we're now closing 3 to 5 deals instead of focusing on generating more leads, right? Again, as we all know, real estate is a relationship business. So it's about converting those leads or wholesale deals, teamwork and productivity, just communication and working every day on all cylinders. The net, all learning, behavior, and change is at the unconscious level. Learning to listen to your unconscious voice, that gut feeling. What happens oftentimes is that someone, you'll hear that your voice, your inner voice, and it's going to tell you, take this road. No, I think I want to go this way. And inevitably, that's the road that leads to the trouble. Had I listened to my voice and taken it, when it's the first thing that comes to you, that's your unconscious voice giving you the answer. Your unconscious voice, your unconscious mind knows exactly what that answer is. All right. So there is a what type of communicator are you quiz. So if anybody's interested in the quiz, send me an email and I will, I'll send you a copy of that quiz. Cheryl at clarityelevated.com. That's my coaching business. And other ways to find me, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, email, like I said, Cheryl at clarityelevated.com.
And
who's
Cheryl,
ready to communicate?
Cheryl, what was that subject line you wanted to put in? Just go back a slide for a second. Oh, communicator.
Yep, communicator quiz.
Cool. So Cheryl, can I ask, who did you do your NLP training with?
So I did my training with Recalibrate 360. Christy Miller and Nathan Rossi are the owners and the master trainers, the NLP trainers, certified trainers. The practitioner training was 7 days. And then the master practitioner training was 16 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So what the other coaching part of my business really is about breakthrough coaching and removing the obstacles and getting to the root of the programming. So we talked a little bit about that programming. It's really everything that's underneath. I've had clients that, one of my clients, and she was one of the friends, is a friend of the boys. And she's like, I just can't sleep. I have these nightmares, these night terrors. She's like, I'm taking all this stuff to get to sleep. She's like, I'm afraid to go to sleep. And I'm like, holy cow, no one should live that way. Right. And so, so we did some work with her. I did some work with her, some coaching and some work. And she was able to release, she was able to determine, like, so you get in touch with your unconscious mind. She was able to determine what was really going on. And she was able to, her unconscious mind, again, remember guys, your unconscious mind knows everything that has happened in your life, and it's all chronologically stored, really like in a filing cabinet format. So she was able to realize that when she was really young, there was an incident. She kind of knew, consciously was kind of aware of it. She knew there was an incident that something happened. Her dad, I can't, let me think if I can remember the details. Her dad was gone. He was working nights. Something happened. She woke up with a kind of a nightmare, night terror kind of thing. And her parents didn't handle it well. And that manifested just through the years to these horrible sleeping problems. Oh my gosh, she is so thrilled to be sleeping better. It was just such a cool thing for her to experience that. Another one of my clients, he, and again, this was a friend of the kids, he realized that when he found out that his mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer, he then developed some behavioral problems. And he was about, I think he was in high school at the time. And they started trying to diagnose the problems and put him on medicine for bipolar. Well, we started talking through it, and he's like, I made it up. I'm not bipolar at all. He's like, I completely made it up. So again, it's, I don't want to go into too many details because I don't want to, really scare anybody away. It's again, getting in touch with your unconscious mind to really understand what was going on. So that was a piece of it. I got an email, I posted it on Facebook for any of you that I'm friends with on Facebook. Was another client, actually friends of ours. And I got a text. I'll read it to you. I got a text from the dad the other day, and he said, let's see if I can find it. He's like, I've been meaning to call you, or I've been meaning to text you. Thank you so much. Oh, can I find it here? Let's see here. What did I do with it? Hold on. This is totally, it's like, this is the really cool part of what I get to do in my business. So he, good morning. I've been meaning to reach out to you to tell you what a difference you made in Katie's life. She has a whole new outlook on life. She doesn't let the BS get to her. She just smiles and says, I'm trying to help and I'm just doing my job. No crying, no taking it personally. It's great to see her having fun at work. Thank you so much. Now, the dad, so I also did a session with the dad, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm so happy she's enjoying life again. I said, so the dad, his concern and sort of presenting problem, we'll call it, right? Or presenting issue at the time he wanted to overcome. This man's been in sales, like I've known him for 30 years, and he's been in sales all 30 years. And he said, Cheryl, I'm afraid to admit this, but he said, I am scared to death to call my current customers to ask for repeat business. I'm like, are you kidding me? He said, I'll pick up the phone and cold call any day, but I am petrified to call my customers for repeat business. I thought, holy moly. So we worked and got to the root of that. And so I said, how are things going for you? Here was his response. Record months, no fear here. I was like, yes. So,
well, and you guys out there, I worked with Cheryl back in December, and it was really good. But the thing that I do, I have to tell you, and there's been a couple times, I'll tell a story that happened with Marie and I, but literally before I leave my house, I will walk in my office and I'll look around and I'll say, okay, subconscious mind, what am I missing? What do I need? Yeah. What am I forgetting? And I do that. So one day, and I've shared this with Cheryl, but Marie and I were going to videotape one day, and I knew we were going to videotape. So I got up, I did what I had to do. I followed my routine, but something broke in my routine that morning. And I kept feeling like I was forgetting something, and I was forgetting something. I just had this nagging feeling that I was forgetting something. And so I get down to the office that she and I were working on, and she's not even there yet, I don't think. Oh, she is. She walks in and I see her and I'm still like, I'm forgetting something. I'm on the phone with my project manager and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I forgot my freaking eyeshadow. That's what I forgot. I don't have any mascara on. He's like, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, I knew I was forgetting something, and Marie had makeup on that day because we were videotaping. And I was like, I just did not listen to my subconscious
Didn't
mind
listen to it. Yep.
to know that was, I knew it. I knew there was a pull. It was literally like a pull. You are forgetting this. And I'm looking in the mirror thinking, what are you forgetting? And so I've learned to literally, and I'm not great at it, but ask my subconscious mind, like, what am I forgetting? What do I got to do? What's panicking me right now?
Yeah, there's so many things. It's really, Liz, I'm glad you said that. And thanks for sharing. It's so much about, listen, your unconscious mind knows the right answer. You have to learn to listen to it. And many of us, I used to be this way, and I could go into more details, and I don't want to scare anybody away, but when your unconscious mind and your conscious mind are not integrated, or they're not on the same wavelength, one's stronger than the other, and you might feel like you've got sort of that battle going on in your head, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I'm coming or going. Well, there's some wonderful, masterful NLP techniques that we can use to resolve those issues and help you get back to where you need to be and want to be, for a productive, fulfilling life.
Yeah. So Cheryl, I guess, can you go into a little bit? I mean, everything that you went over today, like I just took like 3 pages of notes, because it is all stuff that's going to be super helpful when dealing with sellers and communication in general. But can you explain just a little bit about the process that you do as a coach for NLP? Like if I wanted to do something similar with what Liz did with you, what's that process like?
So yeah, great question. So for a breakthrough, we'll just, because here's the thing, the breakthrough, we just wipe out a lot of those obstacles in one session. So it's typically, we do it in 2 half days back to back in person. That way I can have get a good sense of what's going on. I'm trained to watch for those sensory acuity, those changes and whatnot, right? So I can really understand what's going on. Breakthrough, we will go through, I'll ask you a series of questions. We'll dive into some personal history. We'll understand what's happening, what's missing from where you want to be, what's working, what's not working in your life. Some of the clients that I've worked with will say, listen, I know I want more, I can do more, but I'm afraid, or something's stopping me. There's some obstacle, some blockage, right? We'll identify that and we'll work through it. And so we'll come through the questions. I'll be able to get a lot of information based on what you're saying. And then the therapy, it's called a therapy. I will give you this much information. Again, I don't want to listen, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just don't want to presuppose, right? I don't, because this is installing right now in your unconscious mind, and your unconscious mind will make some determinations about what should or shouldn't happen, right? So it's called timeline therapy, and we really get in touch with your personal timeline. And so, for example, if I were to ask you if I were to say, so point to your, well, first of all, if we describe your timeline as a line, front to back, side to side, whatever that might look like, if somebody asked you a question about your past, would that be behind you, to the left, to the right? What would that look like for you, your timeline? So past would be, like, for me, my past is behind me, right? Some people, it's another direction. There's no right or wrong. It's kind of an orientation, right? And where is your future? Well, so once we get that sort of oriented, then we're going to tap into our unconscious and understand what's happening or what has happened on the timeline. And then the really cool thing is we can go put future goals on our timeline as well. And that's where it gets really good and really productive, because then the resources start to line up and you go, holy moly, It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, that night that we did that, my mind was like, I literally slept with the notebook next to my bed, and I kept waking up and I'd write something down that I'd have to, I got to write something down. I got to tell her.
Yep.
All night long. Like, she's like, how'd you sleep? I'm like, well, kind of good, but I got a whole bunch of notes we got to talk about right now.
Yep. You know,
So-
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. When, you know, when you experience that I'm awake in the middle of the night and your unconscious, it's really your unconscious mind just racing. Listen, roll over, write it all down, whether it makes sense or not, just write it down so you can free yourself of that and go back to sleep. Then we talk about what's going on and we'll figure out what all that meant, you know, during a coaching session or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. In a way, it's actually interesting when we talk about the unconscious mind, right? And as you were going through the different senses and stuff. So just for anyone who don't know, I used to do actor training classes, and we would do, you know, method training, and part of just releasing like your stress of the day was like flexing and releasing all of the muscles in your body so that you could actually like release the tension of, and it was amazing sometimes, like, you know, you're doing this in a room with your eyes closed, so you're not supposed to be paying attention to anybody else, but it was amazing sometimes, like you just like release a muscle and then start crying because like something happens where like, you know, you have literally muscle memory of certain things that need to
Right.
come out.
Yeah. One of the clients that I worked with, the conscious mind was so strong, it wasn't allowing the unconscious mind to be heard. And so the client started using sign language. Okay. The client didn't know sign language, had no idea what sign language was. And so in that instance, I started Googling and I'm like, what is it you're trying to tell me? And so listen, your unconscious mind knows. Your unconscious mind is the feeler and the emotions, also keeps track of all of the chronology of everything that's happened in your life. Your conscious mind is the thinker and sometimes the ruler if it's a stronger voice. So your unconscious mind is so strong if you allow it, and it will guide you so nicely in the right direction if you'll allow it and listen to it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I'm appreciate so much your time. And Rochelle, I don't know if you're still on the call because I don't see your face, but I'm so excited that you're going to take sales and negotiations in Dallas, because I know you're going to get a lot out of that.
Yep. Is that the Andy Tanner training, right? Yeah. So see, everything Andy Tanner is going to teach you is NLP based. What he does is, of course, he presents it in a slightly different way at a higher chunk level. It's based on NLP techniques. Yeah. And it feels it feels so masterful when you're talking to someone and all of a sudden you recognize what they're not telling you, or they don't realize they're telling you. And it's just, they just kind of become putty in your hands, if you will. There's so many cool things. I start recognizing patterns in movies and, you know, just all kinds of stuff. There's some values levels. I mean, there's a lot of different cool things and I could go on and I won't bore you with all of them. It's just I'm just so fascinated by how powerful our unconscious minds are and just how well if we listen, they'll guide us in the right direction.
Nice. Sure. I guess one more question that I have is for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about NLP, whether they wanted to do coaching or not, do you have any website, podcast, books, like any suggestions for anybody just to learn a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a great question. Listen, because you said not necessarily wanting to do coaching with it. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see if this is enough. I think this is more of I was going to send you to Christy and Nathan's. It's all salesy though. It's a funnel. It's salesy. You don't really necessarily want to go there because it's not going to give you the information Yeah.
But I guess for most people would start as like what Liz did with you first, right? Like getting a one-on-one training and then go into like recalibrate 360 or something like that.
Yeah. So the thing is, the breakthrough that Liz and I did, so we did it, we did it in the context of career. We can do in career, relationships, money, or just from a personal perspective. What always happens is that when you go down this path for a full breakthrough, whatever we come up with, usually at a personal level, or we go into it from a career perspective, it's kind of the trickle down. So when these obstacles that we're going in to release are in the way, think of it as like boulders in the water, right? You know, the boulders in the water. And so things happen throughout our lives that somebody says, like, you think you did a really great job and somebody knocks you down and you go, oh, maybe I wasn't that good, right? Well, a boulder starts to create, or some event happens. Somebody really wasn't nice to you, you know, or there's something in your past from a childhood experience. You were bullied at school, or a sibling, or whatever that might be, right? And starts to create these boulders along the way. Well, that is what starts to make up and cause our programming to go a different path, for example. And so when we do a breakthrough and start to release and get rid of the obstacles, the good programming flows free. And so it's the thing is to start with the breakthrough first, and then the coaching after that is, all right, now that we have these new awarenesses, and let's, you know, where do we want to go with it? Like, what are we trying to accomplish in our lives? So from an entrepreneur perspective, right? I want to build my business. I want to do more deals as a real estate investor. Whatever used to be holding me back or was causing me not to have that confidence, or that, you know, or was causing the fear with that God, now I have to, I got to move forward. And sometimes we still need a little push to remind us it's okay to take those steps forward, right? So that becomes the additional kind of ongoing piece.
Nice.
So hopefully that helps. Thank you all. I appreciate
anybody else have any questions for Cheryl?
Yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to answer. As you can see, I could talk about this for a long time.
The question is like, I don't know if you will be able to say how much a session with you to start, or I don't know what is the.
I'll tell you what. Let me let's see here. Let me do this. Hold on. Let me get not that one. Hang on. Let me get a link here, and I'm going to put it in the chat box for everybody, and I can put it out on your Facebook page as well. So this is a link if you want to schedule a complimentary 30-minute discovery call. Use this link, get on my calendar. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's figure out the best course of action, depending on where you are, what's happening in your life, what's not happening in your life, and where you want to go from there. Okay. And then we'll just figure out the right path. It's not necessarily one size fits all. However, really getting rid of and breaking down that old programming is a fabulous way just to kind of flush that stuff out and move forward from there.
Yeah, I would recommend that, getting on a 30-minute call with Cheryl. You know, I knew her, and we already still discussed what my goals were, or what I wanted, you know, with that. And so, you know, you guys know my sister lives up in Colorado and she's in Denver. And so, you know, it was great timing for me, so I could schedule the opportunity to go down to Denver and be with Cheryl and do that. So that was phenomenal. Although we got cut short because of a pending snowstorm, but
we did a bit, didn't we? Yeah, we did.
It was
well
good.
And Liz, tell everybody, I mean, you know, really, it was a good thing we were face to face, right?
Oh, yeah.
You would agree?
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I mean, because she said in the beginning, and I don't want to, you know, things could have changed. it could have been done online on a Zoom, but I said, no, I'm coming there. I'm going to give you the time, and I want to make the time for me. And that was, that I had that opportunity because I was already there.
Yeah.
But that made all the difference in the world, being right there, and being able to just talk to her. Like I say, get up in the middle of the night, come back the next day and be like, oh my gosh, look at all these notes that I just took in the middle of the night because my subconscious mind was just going crazy. And it was all good. It was work related. I still have the notes in there. It was just how to break through the next level. And am I there yet? I do not know. But like I say, I talk to my subconscious mind all the time and tell it. And then if I'm getting caught up in it, I remember to go back and say, no, what's happening here? What am I thinking? What is my subconscious mind telling me or not telling me something? So
that's right. That's right.
Liz, I will say you have repeatedly told me how you have had much less confrontation with your husband since you're meeting with Cheryl, because you're responding in a very different way, and it's giving you a totally different outcome, which is right, very calm. But that's huge, just that change,
Mm-hmm.
No, that's exactly it. I do okay, this is just for instance, this is super quick, but a friend of mine unexpectedly to me got married over the weekend, and I was a little miffed on the whole thing because I was like, why didn't I know? Why wasn't I invited? Well, there was a miscommunication and it was kind of an elopement. But then I said to myself, this is stupid. He's my friend. I need to tell him congratulations. Like I let my subconscious mind take over. Like the right thing to do is send him a message, say, it's wonderful, that kind of a thing. And it was just good to know that that's what was tapping me in the brain. And I listened to that and so anyway, it was just good. Cheryl, I knew 100% it was coming from my subconscious mind.
Well, and here's the thing. So when you find yourself being even the slightest bit indecisive, or the person you're talking to. So Marie for Liz and Liz for Marie, I'll use you guys as an example, right? So somebody's one of you is hesitating and you're not able to necessarily, you're going, I don't know, mama. If you were to know, what would the answer be? Right now. And your unconscious mind is going to tell you exactly what that answer is.
Okay, that's a good point, Cheryl. Do you work with multiple people at any given time, business partners, couples, anything like that? Do you do that, or is it usually always a one-on-one?
Great question. So the breakthroughs are always one-on-one. I mean, it's not a good facilitation to do that with more than one person. Now, that said, there are other techniques we can use. So I've got a corporate client. We're starting to work together. We're going to do breakthroughs for the corporate team, right? His key team. Everybody's going to get a personal breakthrough. Then we're going to bring the whole team together and do what we call a values alignment exercise. And so that works really good with business partners. Values, there's so many things just in pure values. People think differently. I mean, you have your set of values and you want different things maybe from the business, for example, right? And so we do go through an exercise and get those in alignment, and then we'll come back and like I'll do that part of the meeting after the breakthroughs. Meet with everybody individually. We'll talk about what they think their values are. So then we present them back to the head of the company, and he's going to see, oh, this one thinks this one thinks this. So we don't value the same things. We're not communicating. We'll do the values exercise, get everybody on the same page. And then I'll start to train them. All right, now that we're all thinking the same way, then I'll take them through a similar module like we just did about communications. And then we can go into values and recognizing where you may or may not be along the way, right? Just a brief intro into values. Liz and I talked a little bit about it. Values levels have to do with where we are kind of on the energy curve, I'll say. We all are born into what's called a values level 2, kind of into the tribe, into the family. And so we take all our values from the family and we hang on to those, right? And that's where what we think, that's our view of the world. And at some point we start to kind of get out of values level 2 and we go, well, wait a minute, what about me? Well, a lot of times that's kind of teenage into young adulthood sort of years. You'll recognize that being pretty strong, right? And somebody who, so that's a values level 3, a very self-rules, all about self kind of feeling. Well, some people don't necessarily outgrow that. Others realize, well, wait a minute, I don't like being the ruler of myself. I need to figure out and go attach myself to a system. So they'll join a church. They'll go to work for a company because they want their rules and their system, right? And so that's a values, then now we've transitioned into values level 4. Well, at some point, the system is now failing us. So we all probably can relate to that. We've worked a W-2 job and all of a sudden we're not getting out of that W-2 job what we wanted. I'm going to go start my own business. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Well, we've now opened up energy and we're moving into values level 5. And so what that also means, though, is if we haven't done a breakthrough and we haven't released some of that stuck energy in any of those lower levels, we haven't fully opened up all our energy to be a full-on entrepreneur in a level 5 or a 6 or a 7, so an Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, we're going to save the world, bigger thinking, right? Values level 6, values level 7. All energy has to go through every one of the levels. Energy cannot skip a level. I was team leading at an event. One of the guys said, hey, can I just teach my kids how to just like be a values level 5? And I'm like, great thinking, doesn't work that way, right? You've got to go through every one of the levels. The other thing to remember is that in times of stress, we will revert to the lowest level where we still have stuck energy. So I don't mean to get political. When Donald Trump was going through his period of crisis, when he didn't win the election, it was all about self. It was a huge demonstration of some stuck energy in values level 3, right? Any of you who might be a fan of the movie White Christmas. So the general at the beginning of the movie, he's retiring, and as the story goes later in the movie, I should remember the actors. My husband and I have to watch it every year at Christmas. Anyway, the singers, the guys get to meet up with the girls, right? And so they end up at the resort. Well, there's not much happening at the resort, and the resort isn't. Thank you, Rachel. Awesome. And the resort is not making the money because there wasn't any snow that year. Well, what does the general do? I'm going back in the army. Well, we call that looping. So we're looping back to the system, right? Some of you as entrepreneurs may have said, ooh, maybe this entrepreneurial journey isn't going so well. I'm going to run back and get a job again. Well, so there's a whole bunch we can do and talk about that as far as energy. And that's part of what we'll go through and release as well in a personal breakthrough. Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Cheryl, I've been this. I love this. I'm really intrigued. I have been totally delving into personal development and mindset and everything for probably close to 1.5 years now. And I'm in the middle of a coaching program right now. How can what you do, does it mix well with other programs? Or is it better? Is it different?
It depends. So, listen, it's, there are lots of programs out there that attempt, I'm going to say attempt, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, that are attempting for similar results. Now, my personal opinion is, if we're not fixing our own programming and getting to what's inside, we're not setting ourselves up for the success to achieve what we want to achieve. Some people, right? Some people believe that, everything's quantum. So it's all lined up for us anyway, and that's fine. However, we also have to recognize the signs along the way. If we miss the signs and the signals, we're going to have a different result. Now, if you're a person who can, through constant daily and daily change, daily routines or rituals, and that affects change for you and you're okay, you might be fine where you're at. For me, I'll tell you my experience, right? I've been through 2 breakthroughs, totally fascinating. And the things that used to bother me or used to stand in my way, not anywhere close. I mean, just some of the old way of thinking about things, it just doesn't even enter anymore. And I will find myself, I'll find myself going, now, wait a minute, that used to be a problem, not a problem anymore. In areas, especially of motivation and taking risks and putting myself out there. Listen, folks, I am probably the queen of going, not good enough, right? Not anymore, not anymore. We call it a limiting decision. And there was a long period of time for me before I went through my breakthroughs where I was just happy being second best, and that was good enough for me. Now think about that. Who was I selling short there? Me, right? No, if I don't put myself out there, I'm not going to build my business. I'm not going to gain and do the things that I want to do if I'm not recognizing those pieces along the way. Listen, Wendy, whatever's working for you, I mean, let's schedule a discovery call and just talk through some of the specifics of your program, and we'll just see. Listen, sometimes I'm just working with a client, We're going to just do a breakthrough, and in like an 8-hour session, 2 4-hour sessions, boom, we're done. There's some follow-up coaching that I'll do. And then it's establishing and going after the new habits, right? For me, getting rid of the baggage has been the motivation to work out regularly, clean out the closets in my house. I've painted all the rooms. I shouldn't say I have done it, but my family, we've all, cleaning out the rooms in the house, painting the house, doing all these things that were just like, I don't want to do them, right? The motivation, they just don't feel like anymore. They just don't feel like obstacles. It's like we just go right through them and keep going. And that's the beauty for me and my experience and my clients of going through a breakthrough. Is it's so much easier to just plow ahead and go forward than it is to retreat or figure out the long path around. So that's been my experience.
I hear you. I mean, when you were just going through, the going back a level, I've been going back and forth the last few months. It's like, oh, this is hard. Maybe I should go back and get that job again. Like, no, you can't do that. It's like that would, I just can't do that. I know it would be the best thing on earth to do to myself and my family.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? And then what will it do for your business? You're going to take a step backwards in your business, right? I was going to look for a quick slide. I don't know if I could put my hands on it fast enough, but part of the values level 4 to 5 is we a lot of people will come out and try the new business, start to experience what you're describing, and maybe decide to go back. Maybe you don't give into it. You'll keep going, whatever that looks like, right? And all of a sudden, at some point, you're going to get to the pit. You're going to get to the bottom. And that's when we want the breakthrough, as we're on that downhill. Wait, things aren't going quite the way they are, or we're headed towards that pit, and we want to bounce off of that to get up all the way fully into values level 5. That is the optimal time to get through a breakthrough. And for that matter, any time along the way, if you will. But that's really, from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's the pattern, the 4 to 5. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. And
it's great to see you again.
You too. I'm so excited, you guys. I love seeing these faces I haven't seen and meeting new ones. You guys, thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. This has been great.
Thank you, Cheryl. It is so nice to see you. So yes, it is great.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, you've got my information, and if Liz knows how to get a hold of me, Marie knows how to get a hold of me. If you
Yeah,
want to
Cheryl, can I put the calendar link in the private group on Facebook if
Mhm.
anybody wants to? Okay.
Yep, put it out there. And so if anybody wants to book a call, you guys, you want to think about it or whatever, listen, it's just 30 minutes. Let's talk about what's going on. And I know a lot of you are in Phoenix, not everybody's in Phoenix, right? Or in Arizona. If it turns out that that's the right thing to do, and there's a few of you that want to do breakthroughs, I'll come to you and we'll schedule them that way. We'll figure out how to make that work.
Well, there you go. I'll get in one of Marie's Airbnbs and
There we go.
Cheryl can have a room.
There we go. Perfect.
Hey, we've been known to do it before for other things. So
Well,
There you
I
go.
was gonna say it would be like the Tony Robbins. We did the Tony Robbins challenge, and a few of us just stayed at my Airbnb so that we could just watch them all day in the living room, go to sleep, and get up and keep watching. So,
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome.
but yeah, I really, really appreciate it, Cheryl. I thoroughly enjoy this, and I know that for me, this is something that I've been interested in getting trained on for a long time. So
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
appreciate it.
well, and Marie, just real quick, what you just said though, there's two parts of that. Getting trained on it, like Cheryl being the trainer,
Right.
and then just experiencing the atmosphere of it and the process of it. And so that's two definitely different things there. And so what she's became the trainer, but she can just work with people like, and just do the training on you, and which is all, phenomenal. So
Yeah. So Margaret just asked, did I understand this right? The sessions must be in person. So to be clear, the breakthrough session for best results, we want to do that in person. And by the way, listen, this isn't me doing something to you. This is me facilitating you making the change and the release. All right.
yeah, it's not all voodoo and everything. It's all
No.
legit, like real. You're not laying, well, you could lay down, I guess, if you want to, but you're there's just
Yeah.
a series of questions and tests and things and talking about stuff. So
Yeah. And so anyway, so it's best if we do the breakthrough in person. Other coaching, the follow-up sessions, we do during via Zoom, or if there's, some other kind of coaching we want to do, we'll do it via Zoom. The breakthroughs, we've got to do those in person. They're just so much more effective that way. There you go. Okay. Well, we'll figure it out, Margaret. We'll figure it out.
yeah.
All right.
All right. Oh, thank you. It was so good to see you.
Awesome.
Good to see you guys. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great rest of the evening.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Cheryl.
Bye. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.